So as you've probably heard by now, last week, the Indiana legislature voted to abolish abortion, so to speak. The bill was SB1, and of course, there were a lot of changes and things going to it. We didn't know what was going to happen when it came down to it, but they finally passed it, and Governor Holcomb signed it. And I just want to take some time today to look at what does it actually mean? Did they actually abolish abortion here in the state of Indiana? This, of course, means a lot to me because I live in Indiana. And I'm curious what happened because we hear so much online, right? You hear so much from news. You know, there's this side and there's that side. So what I did was I actually looked at what people were saying about the bill. And then I read the bill, most of it anyway, a lot of the legalese and a lot of the repetition. I didn't get out into all that. But I actually looked through it to see what did this bill actually say. And I'm going to show you right now just some bullet points from it so you know what the bill says. And then we're going to walk actually through it if you want to hang out with me and actually look at the bill itself and see some of the legal terms, about what it says. So here it is right here. This is just a document that I put together about what this bill does. Indiana Senate Bill 1, and it actually becomes effective September 15th of 2022. And this one does, it terminates the licensure of abortion clinics. In my estimation, probably the biggest thing that this bill does. You can't have abortion clinics anymore. Abortions, when they are allowed only in hospitals or hospital-owned facilities, all right? Number 2 specifies that the abortion statutes do not apply to in vitro fertilization. And here's where it does allow abortions. It allows in certain cases, serious health risk to the mother, before 20 weeks after fertilization, to save the mother's life, also 20 weeks, lethal fetal anomaly, and it also says 20 weeks, and rape or incest up to 10 weeks after fertilization. Now, there's a couple other things about that right here. A person does not have to be charged with a crime in order for it to be considered rape or incest. So it's not like there has to be some kind of proceedings first. They have to claim that it's rape or incest. Parental consent is not necessary for a minor who is pregnant as a result of rape or incest by a parent, legal guardian, or custodian of the unemancipated minor, and requires a revocation of a physician's license for specific violations concerning abortion. It limits the criminal liability for an abortion for the pregnant mother, a person who provides medical treatment, but unfortunately an abortion happens even though that wasn't the thought behind it. They weren't trying to abort the baby, or a physician who performs a medical procedure to terminate the pregnancy. And there's a lot of legal detail and all that. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. And some other things that this bill does: requires a maternal mortality review committee to study how this affects mortality laws, maternal mortality, and also establishes the prosecutorial oversight task force and specifies duties of that task force. So those are just some different things that does. That's basically what it is. It limits abortion. It doesn't get rid of it, but it does limit it. And like I said, it gets rid of the abortion clinics here in the state, which I think is a very good thing, obviously. If you haven't seen any of my other videos about abortion, I would encourage you to go back and look at my abortion playlist because I like to talk about some of the reasons why we don't believe that abortion is a good thing, why we believe it's very bad. So I just want to look now through this. I'm going to call up the actual bill. You can get online. You can find this, and I compared it with the current Indiana code that we have. And basically what this does, let me get back to the top here. Basically what this does, as you can see where I've highlighted this in some areas I want to talk about, it amends the Indiana code concerning health. The Indiana code obviously is very long, and it changes. The abortion is under health, okay? And so what all these areas here that are crossed out, basically one of the primary things that happens is abortion clinics are not allowed to exist here in Indiana anymore starting September 25th. So many of the things through this bill are just removing abortion clinics from it. All the regulations that were on abortion clinics, all those things, it's just removing it, from all the different places that appears in the code. So that's basically what this section is here, because you don't need any regulations for abortion clinics anymore because abortions can only be done in a hospital or in a hospital owned facility. Now, I don't know how that will look in the future. I don't know if, some hospitals will buy abortion clinics. I don't know, but at least it limits it in that way. So down here where it's highlighted, ambulatory outpatient surgical center, this is where it actually makes this change for purposes of IC 1634. IC 1634 is Indiana Code 1634, which discusses abortion. It refers to an institution described in subsection A and that has majority ownership by a hospital license under IC 1621. So you get a lot of all the legal numbers and you have to go back and forth and all that. But basically, you can't just open an abortion clinic. It has to be owned by a hospital, has to be a hospital center if they're going to do an abortion. So part of me is I just run through here. I highlighted things I wanted to talk about. Right here, this one's important because, as I mentioned, one of the allowances for abortion is in cases of rape or incest. So right here, this change, if they're in bold in this, it means that they are, they're additions, okay? If they're struck out, it means there's something being struck out. So all this in bold is new. So as far as rape or incest goes, for the purpose of abortion, you see where it says rape or incest for purposes of IC 1634. So when you're talking about rape or incest in purposes of abortion, it defines it this way: sexual intercourse with another person if the other person is related to the person biologically as a parent, child, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, etc. Rape, child molesting, child seduction, sexual misconduct with a minor, even if the person has not been charged with or convicted of the act or offense. So yeah, basically, you don't have to wait for someone actually to be convicted with a rape or incest in order for that to count as rape or incest. And so the state is still allowing abortions in the case of rape or incest. And of course, I have a different opinion on that. Now, whether it should be, I don't think that you should take the life of a child because of the sin of a parent. But that stands, and I understand that, they had to probably make some concessions in order to get this thing to pass because there were people on both sides of it. Some thought it didn't go far enough. Some thought it went too far. But this is what they ended up with. And at least, if nothing else, it does limit abortion to a degree here in the state. So moving down to the next one, the term. Okay, well, this was already, because it's not bold, this was already in the code. It talks about one of the reasons that you can have abortion still in Indiana is for the health of the mother, and just something that's already in our code saying that it's not talking about emotional health, and it's not like a woman can just say, oh, look, I've got problems, so I can abort the baby. So there's already things in our code. It has to really be a serious physical problem, okay, for it to count as something to make an allowance for abortion. Again, we have a lot of things that are just crossed out just because you don't have abortion clinics anymore, starting September 15th. Okay, just still the same kind of thing. That's why so much of the code is just crossed out, because if you can have abortion clinic, there's no reason to have anything in your code about abortion clinics. So let's keep on moving down. Sorry that it's coming by so fast. Okay, there it is right there. This article does not apply to in vitro fertilization. So if you're going to talk about abortion with in vitro fertilization, all the eggs, that just doesn't have any bearing on this. That's something that could possibly be taken up another day if they so desire. Okay, this section, it was just talking about how they believe it's been in the code for a long time that our General Assembly believes that a fetus can experience pain at 20 weeks. 20 weeks is kind of a key in this whole thing. Okay, here it says, abortion shall in all instances be a criminal act except when performed under following circumstances. So here it's going to say when an abortion is actually allowed, except as prohibited in IC 1634 4, which basically what that section does is it says you cannot abort your baby because you don't like its sex or you don't like its disability or whatever. Okay, that's what that one's about. So here is abortion is a criminal act except as prohibited there before the earlier viability of the fetus or 20 weeks of post-fertilization age of the fetus. So basically, it can only happen up to 20 weeks, according to my understanding of this. And the abortion is necessary when reasonable medical judgment dictates that performing the abortion is necessary to prevent any serious health risk to the pregnant woman or to save the pregnant woman's life, or the fetus is diagnosed with a lethal fetal anomaly. Okay, so if the fetus is diagnosed something that it's going to die from, or if there's a serious health risk to the woman or the pregnant woman's life. As I've said in other videos, I believe in the exception for a mother's life. That's seems to be a theme even through the Bible. It's a life for life. Now, a mother might say, look, I will die to give my child life. And that's awesome and that's great. But I think if one has to go, you're making a choice between one life or another life, and it's a hard decision. But I would agree with that generally. But I'm not so sure about the serious health risk part or even a lethal fetal anomaly because life is so precious. I think we need to take every chance that we can actually to let the children be born. But that's the way that this law is written up here. And again, it says it has to be in a hospital or a hospital-owned facility right there. Okay, we're scrolling down a little bit more. Here it talks about the situation of rape and incest. If the baby is conceived because of rape or incest, it says during the first 10 weeks, then the baby can be aborted. All right, moving on down. A person may not knowingly or intentionally perform a partial birth abortion. So this is already in the books. This is nothing new. Indiana has a law against partial birth abortion. And I know some of these parts in this code there have been lawsuits about them, and some of them were held back by judges for a while. So there's all that kind of stuff that goes on. But okay, down here we have, this is already in the code too. It's not bold, so it's already there. Except in the case of medical emergency, consent to an abortion is voluntary and informed only if the following conditions are met. And this was interesting. At least 18 hours before the abortion and in private, not group, presence of the pregnant woman, the physician who is to perform the abortion, the referring physician or physician assistants, et cetera, so forth. They need to have a meeting with the woman, okay? And there's other things here. If you're going to have an abortion in Indiana, you have to wait 18 hours after having a private meeting with the abortionist or someone there from the office. And you also have to have an ultrasound. You have to have the ability, if you want to be able to see the picture. All these things are set up in our Indiana code already for having an abortion. Again, we've got more abortion clinics struck out because we don't need them anymore. Moving on down further. Okay, and this was already in the code too, but I think it's important. A fetus born alive shall be treated as a person under the law. So once you're born alive, you do everything you can to save the life of that person. I think that's it's already there. All right, this section, it deals with a parental or a guardian consent for a minor's abortion. And it says, this section does not apply to a minor who is less than 18 years of age or who is pregnant as a result of rape or incest by a parent, legal guardian, or custodian of the unemancipated minor. So this is where it says that if a person is a minor, they're under 18, and they have been impregnated by a parent or a legal guardian, they don't need permission to have an abortion. Okay, moving on down. There's so much, you know how law is, right? You got so many places where everything is copied, and a lot of legalese in there just to, I guess, keep our lawyers in their job, huh? And this is one thing it did here. It's changing people who commit abortions, who do abortions. They have to now submit quarterly reports on what goes on. Apparently, it used to be yearly. Now it has to be quarterly, so they get more reports from what's going on. Okay, down here we have. Okay, it's listing crimes for people who commit abortions. This is where it's going to start getting a lot more difficult because you start comparing different parts of the law with other parts, and it really gets confusing. So let's get down here a little bit. Okay, and we have it talks here about a mortality review committee, as I mentioned at the beginning, where they'll be looking at how does this abortion law, how does it affect maternal mortality? Are more women dying from this? Because they can't have their abortions and things like that. One of the jobs that this committee will have to do is study how abortion laws obviously affect maternal mortality. Okay, and this here, it starts talking about physician licenses can be revoked. That's what IC 2522.58-6 is all about, revoking physician licenses. But this is about for failing to turn in abortion reports. So if you're an abortionist, you're a physician, you better be turning in your reports. You could lose your license, right? And it just goes on to say that if they are performing a prohibited abortion right here, they could have their license revoked also. Okay, here it just talks about health plans can only cover allowed abortions in Indiana. Now here we get to the part that is really kind of difficult because it talks about criminal law and procedure. So that's what 3541.312 is about. It's about criminal law and procedure. So this part really, to be honest, because I'm a pastor, I'm not a lawyer, this got a little confusing to me. So I contacted my favorite lawyer, thanks James, and he gave me some answers on this. And basically what this whole section is saying is a mother who has an abortion is not going to be held criminally liable for having an abortion. And apparently, however it happens, okay? So it kind of gets the woman off the hook. She cannot be criminally liable for what she does. A physician, on the other hand, can be held criminally liable for doing an abortion that is not allowed, but it's not as a high degree as the punishment say that someone who is not a physician would have. So this just gives all the legalese about how, what if you're going to have a felony or misdemeanor, whatever it is for doing an abortion. So you might want to contact your closest competent authority if you're interested in that. And down here it says a prosecutorial oversight task force is created. This is just next page. I have this is what the task force will do. They'll study the circumstances in which a county prosecutor makes a blanket refusal to enforce a specific statute or constitutional provision. We're seeing some of that, aren't we, in the country, where people just are refusing to enforce what they don't like. They don't like the law, so they don't enforce it. So it just has this whole committee this whole task force about making sure that everything is being done. So that is it right there. That is the law. Now, my thoughts on this, in general, I like it. I wish that it could be a little tighter, but I understand that we're living in a society where if you have to pass anything, it's you have to have some kind of consensus, even here in Indiana, because this is a very conservative state. On the state level here in Northwest Indiana, not quite so conservative. We're way too close to Chicago up here. But as general, our state is more conservative here in Indiana. But still, there were some people that are on the farther right side, and they said, well, this bill doesn't go far enough, which I probably be on that side too, because I think we made too many concessions there, but also the fact that abortion clinics will be shut down under this, and it does limit abortions. I think that's a good thing. To me, you might not be able to get everything. Yeah, I would love to be able to write the bill myself, but we know that's not going to happen. But any life of any baby that we can save, I think that's a good thing. So I'm for that. And I would love to see us maybe go a little bit further at some point here in the future. I'd love to see us be able to limit even more abortions here in Indiana. But in all, I'm fairly happy with this. Any babies that we can save here in Indiana, I think that's a wonderful thing. So there it is right there. If you haven't already, why don't you click the like button on this and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Put a comment in there. Those kind of things just tell YouTube that people are watching these things, and it'll then send it out to more people and they can see what's going on here. So God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time.